Hey, good morning, physical science and biology. We are back in. Scully is here, and we have a friend, and we're going to be working on part 4 of your quest worksheet. So part 4 asks you to start an action plan and collect data. And what that means is they want you to do an experiment or this other thing called a literature review that's highlighted there in orange. So basically, when you test your hypothesis, you have to test it by doing an experiment to see if you get data that will either support your hypothesis or to see if you get data that will disprove your hypothesis. You can also do this thing called a literature review. When you do a literature review, what you do is you go online and then you would look for research that other scientists have done that support or disprove what your hypothesis is about. And so you would use their results to support your hypothesis and talk about that they have a similar hypothesis and they've done similar research. And so this is what you've found so far. So you can do a literature review in lieu of doing an actual experiment when an experiment's not possible. You can tell what other people's findings have been shared with the community. So anyhow, let's go back and look at our hypothesis. Our hypothesis from yesterday was the animal is a mammal. So I went ahead and chose that we could try to do an experiment to prove, and that's how you would answer part A1. You tell if you want to do a literature review or if you want to do an experiment. I chose an experiment, and the way you did an experiment is you try to test your hypothesis. And remember, my hypothesis was that this is a mammal. And the experiment that we're going to do is we're just going to use comparison. So here's the skull that we have, all right, and then here is the skull of an amphibian. Because remember, we were trying to, well, it's actually the body. Let's see what camera angle will show it to you the best. There we go. So this is a little frog skeleton, and here's his skull. And he's definitely, this is a known frog. He's definitely an amphibian, and guys can kind of see everything there. And let's see if, I don't know, let me back it up and see if we can get a little bit of a better view that way. There we go. That's a great view right there. And that would be what the skull of an amphibian looks like. Their bones are really fragile and brittle, a lot smaller than some of the larger mammals. And let's take a look at the skull. The skull has a very tiny, I don't even know if this camera is like good enough to show what I'm doing here, but a very, very tiny brain case. All right, and that's one of the telltale signs that you have like a reptile or amphibian. A lot of times they will have what they call like a really small cranium because the rest of this is just jaws. And so they just have this tiny, tiny cranium to protect the brain. So let's go ahead and take a look at the skull, Scully. The one we've been making talk. Hi guys. All right, so Scully's here. Let's take a look at Scully's brain case. All right, so Scully, one, has a huge skull, and two, this will be his cranium. And this is a really large brain case. And when you look, when you take him apart, and you take a look at him, okay, that's where his brain would be up inside. Woo, let me see where I'm going here. Up inside this hole. And so there's a large, so this animal's brain is very large and very well developed, and you can see it's super well protected by this skull. So that is one of the signs that this animal is definitely a mammal, because mammals have really large, well-developed brains, and amphibians don't necessarily have that large or well-developed brains. And so that's why you can get away with you're an amphibian, which doesn't mean that they're not smart, because don't get me, oh my gosh, amphibians are like some of the awesomest, like ninja-like predators that there are out there. Oh man, you see, can I get you to see it a little bit better? But anyways, right here is his brain case. And amphibians are one of the awesomest, most ninja-like predators that are out there. But anyhow, one of the telltale signs that you have a mammal skull is you have a nice thick cranium with a large, well-developed brain. And that is what we definitely have here with Scully. So that would be my experiment. So letter B1 would say, oh, what did I do for my experiment? So I would say I compared the unknown skull with a known amphibian skull. And I'm abbreviating, so when you read this on the screen, you're like, what? With a known amphib skull. All right. So what do you need to measure? Right now, we're actually just doing like what would we call that? Like just a comparison in cranium sizes. Okay, just a comparison in cranium sizes. How long will it take for you to do the experiment? What it take us, like 3 minutes, 4 minutes? 4 minutes. What tools do you need? We need 2 skulls, your eyes, and other senses. And what do we use to organize our data? We just use notes. Number 5, how many helpers do you need? On this one, we needed 0. And is there any additional information to help us understand the procedures in your experiment? And basically, the additional information was we used a known amphib skull for comparison. Okay, so that's how you would do part B. All right. Letter C says if you chose a literature review, describe the steps you're going to use to organize your research. So what can you record and organize in your findings? So if we did a literature review, we would go onto Google and Google a bunch of different images of amphibian skulls and Google a bunch of different images of mammal skulls and compare the two of them. So how could you record and organize your findings? You can put them in a Google Doc. All right. And label one layer, one column amphibians, one column mammals, and you could put it maybe in a Google slide if you wanted to. Some type of technology. It's kind of up to you however you want to organize this. Draw an example of your organizational tool here. So I would probably just draw like some 2-column notes, and I'm going to call that, I'd probably put it in a Google Doc with all the images. So you draw a picture of that. All right, keep it sweet, short and sweet. What specific information do you need to record? We definitely would need to record amphib skulls versus mammal skulls. All right. And then it says after you organize the data, in what do you do with it? How do you analyze it? So when we analyze it, we look for similarities or something unique to pop up. So we look for similarities or unique findings. So the unique finding we used to help us with today was that amphibians, just because of the way that nature has made them, depending on what you believe, amphibians have this really kind of unique, there we go, that's a great view, a really unique skull with a really small brain case. And so that's a unique finding that we came across when we were studying our 2 skulls. And then we noticed that the other brain case was really big and thick and had a big spot for the brain to go. So that would be our unique finding that we use to help us come up with the next part. That will be number 5. That would be our drawing conclusions. So I hope that you guys are understanding. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments as far as on our Google Classroom, or you can always email them or text them to me. Bye, guys. Have a great day.